Geez, we have 17 waiting already. How about that?
And
Can you
what?
believe that? Well, I just pulled up the show. We're live.
Oh,
And we had 17,
good thing you put that in there. Just
17 people waiting before we even started. How about that?
I like that.
now. I think two. I think.
The queue is forming to the left.
Well, I think 3 of them are from Dick's downstairs at the bar.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Did you
Since
let
I
him
was
know?
locked out, I had to stop in there and wait for the door to get opened up. So I talked him into tuning in.
This
so
has become a thing for you, unfortunately.
it's actually a good problem to have.
You can't get into the studio.
No, you can't get in the studio. So now I'm smart enough to go into the spot right below the studio and wait until somebody lets me in.
At least you didn't get locked in the stairs this time.
I knew better.
Need a Miller Lite.
See, you can only fool Luds once. The second time he knows. Luds is here. I'm here. Sam is there. John is here. Let's get our pregame show going. It's Saturday night in Montreal. No stage is bigger.
Get it ready, boys.
Yes, indeed. It is indeed the Ludwig Classic because it's his 2 biggest franchises of his NHL playing career going head-to-head tonight. And I can't think of a bigger stage than Hockey Night in Canada, a Saturday night at Bell Center, and Stars versus Canadiens. It should be a fun one.
Shane Show.
Oh,
the
here
Shane
we
shows.
go.
Oh, if you ever get there, you want to go have a hot dog at the Montreal buildings. I don't care if it's the old one or the new one. They're fantastic.
Quick question, then we'll get to our pregame show. Were guys on your teams eating those in the locker room after the game? Was one of your backup goalies eating it during the game? As Sean was hiding M&Ms in his blocker, sitting and watching.
There were players that were eating them, but they weren't in the locker room. They'd have been outside underneath. There was always a one of the people that an usher Ed, I should say, that would run up, grab a couple of hot dogs for whoever wanted them, and so they'd wolf them down. They don't take long to finish them, so but not in the locker room. My day when I first got started, oddly enough, there were about 4 guys sitting in their stalls having a dart, smoking. So they weren't having the hot dogs in there. They had the hot dogs before. So and then after, there was no time after. You got to get going. We got to get.
There were
we got to
things
get
to
down
do.
to St. Catherine Street. You got to get downtown.
Well, this is the DLS Dallas Stars pregame show. It's Stars versus Montreal Canadiens tonight at the Bell Center. It is an incredible venue. It's loud. The media gondola where the broadcast location is hangs out over the upper levels, so there are fans actually behind and above you. It is a beautiful location. Luddy, it's a fun place to watch hockey, and it's an extremely knowledgeable fan base that is extremely loud, especially when things are going well and even when they're not.
Yeah, well, they let you know. But it's a religion there. When I first got there, you can look back at some of the black and white pictures. When I first got there, it was still like that. There's a lot of the fans that are sitting in their seats, all dressed in suit and ties. Now that has changed, generation different, but they are very knowledgeable. And oddly enough, you can go back to the city and you can walk up and down the street and you will get recognized, which is crazy with this, this generation. But the alumni association there is incredible, just like it would be in Toronto. So all their guys stay relevant and they're all busy.
Sam, the Stars enter tonight's game on a 6-game winning streak, which is 2 shy of the franchise record, which they sent last year, 8 wins, and points in 8 straight games, 7-0-1. And suddenly they've surged back into 3rd place for now a couple of days, and they have caught and passed Colorado. It's a long way to go because we still have to play tonight's game. After tonight, they hit the halfway point, 41 down, 41 to go. But it feels like even with the injuries and some of the issues the Stars have dealt with, that they are maybe hitting a little bit of a stride right now midseason.
Absolutely, they are. And I think that's the perfect way to say it. And I think Pete DeBoer talked about it either yesterday or a couple of days ago in New York, how it felt like it was coming, right? We talked about it on the show and we kept saying the sky wasn't falling. And that was a fun little pun for for the drops and things like that. But there you go. But the real reason we're saying that is because it felt like one, maybe two things had to change for this team to go from where they were, which is kind of bumpy, wild card out of a playoff spot, to the team we know they can be. And that number one thing was scoring goals, right? A little bit of power play help and scoring one more goal per game, 5-on-5 or on the power play. They've done that. And the PK held them down. They're the second best penalty kill in the league now. Their goaltending has been excellent. They have, I think, the second best goals against in the league now. So that is really what held them through all this while they just kind of figured it out. And now that they've figured it out, at least at the moment, the team's rolling. And this is the team that we knew they could be, right? They're not perfect, but just one more goal per game has made them go on a long streak and made them look really, really hard to beat every single night.
We talk about Montreal and how important it is for people that grew up in Quebec. It's a big province. Obviously, they used to have the Nordiques and have a real in-province rivalry. Now it's just the Canadiens, who are one of the most storied franchises in NHL history, most Stanley Cup wins. You've lived it, both there and then the Montreal South that led to a Dallas Stars Stanley Cup in '99. Maverick Bourque will play his first game at Bell Center ever. He said his first time on the ice was yesterday's practice they had. And knowing that he's from a very small town in Quebec. It's not like he's a Montreal suburbanite like many are. And he is, those small towns, people know the kids. They watch them help raise them at times, as far as, all the kids doing the different sports or playing hockey. How exciting and maybe nervous might Maverick Bourque be right now? On the flip side, for the first time in his NHL career, he has points in back-to-back games.
I think that's the good news. I think that's the good news going into this game. If it was the way it was 2 to 3 weeks ago or so, where things weren't clicking as well for Maverick, I just think that, well, first off, I'm going to say is this game is he's going to be more nervous in this game than he is in his first pro game.
Really?
Yeah, because he's going back to church. And like I say, it's a religion there. And yeah, I listened to, I picked up on a couple pressers today, and I think Pete was one of them, but they didn't care about how Dallas was doing. They wanted to know all about Maverick. They wanted to hear, that's just the reporters. Yeah. And you can always tell when there's a French guy in there, because immediately the first word, oh, this French guy, let's see how he listens. And, but again, it's going to be about that. They come home, they love their own. And what'll happen is if Maverick has a really good game tonight, his name will be mentioned in all the papers about getting traded there. You know what I mean? Like, how do we, bring him back? This is who we want here. They want as many French people to play for that team as possible. And again, I will say it though, they put their arms around every player regardless of where they're from, as long as you're doing well. That's the thing is it can be that fickle. Is like, if you're on these guys that are playing right now in Montreal and where they're knocking on the door of a playoff spot, even though they still got half a season to go, everything changes in the attitude and the way that the articles are written and the comments on the news and things like that. And you take some of these guys that have been there for a couple of years now, and probably Colecaufield, for sure, things haven't been that good there because the team hasn't been there. So you can see what gets under their skin here. They're playing well right now because they like playing at home finally, because the fans are all into it. They're on a good little run right here, and they're knocking on the door, like I said, of a playoff spot. So, but yeah, if you're French and you come back to that province, you are theirs.
Sam, we talk about Maverick Bourque, and let's take a look at the lineup for the Stars expected tonight, and we're expecting no changes. Now, we'll talk about Mate Blumel in a minute, but look at that third line. You've been talking to Pete a lot lately on your trip about Bourque and Stankoven, but we had a post-game discussion about what the sudden emergence of that third line does for the whole group, considering they loaded up on the top two lines.
It's what they needed, right? It's what made them so dangerous last season. You looked at, I think they had 8 20-goal scorers last year, a franchise record, or at least Dallas record. That's what made them so dangerous, because you can't look at the top line and just say they're going to be good every night, right? The Robertson, Hintz, Pavelski group was really good very often, but there were nights that they weren't. And when that happened, you needed the Sagans or the Marchments or the Duchesnes. And then when those guys weren't going, that's when the bottom 6 came in. It could have been a third line, it could have been a fourth line, but someone always stepped up. The Radek Foxes scored a goal. The Ty Dellandry has got a goal. That's what made the team so dangerous and what made them so hard to defend. Pete DeBoer's talked about it. I asked him a few days ago or a couple weeks ago when he benched the guys in those last 2 games, those home games. And he said, I don't like to do it because my philosophy is to roll 4 lines. It's what I like to do as a coach. It's what I want my teams to look like. This is how you do it. You need guys to chip in. And for Stankoven, it's coming, right? We've been saying it. It's coming. He's still looking good. He's still making an impact. He just needs to get that goal to go. But Maverick Bourque has looked his best over the last 2 games that we've seen. And Sam Steele, we know what he is. He brings it every single night. He brings the speed, the hard work in the corners, his help on the goal to Harley to tie the game against the Rangers. One of my favorite plays from him all season. That is what makes this team dangerous. And that's what I think they need, not just in the regular season, but in the playoffs. And it's why they need to be so deep, because they have so many guys that get hurt in the playoffs, right? We haven't seen Rope Hintz healthy in a playoff run in forever. Tyler Seguin, we don't know what's going to happen with him when he does come back. Mason Marchment misses time a lot. They have guys that are probably not going to be 100% throughout a lot of the playoffs. So when you have 4 lines and you can bump a Sam Steele up to a 3rd line, or you can have a 4th line jump in and produce a little bit, it makes you a much more dangerous team. And that's what they have going on right now.
Well, Sam, the chat is already on you when they go to the full shot, not because of the lack of decorations tonight.
Oh boy.
It's TV cable maintenance and management. They would like you to hide that a little bit better, make it a little more
Did I not
streamlined.
say this from the very first show that you were in that dungeon of yours right there?
You know what? I bought one of those tube things to put on there to block it, but it looked even worse with that on there. So maybe I got to paint it blue or something. I don't know. I don't
You know what? It doesn't help that you have a mirror that's showing it to us twice.
Yes,
we can see it in the mirror and live.
We get 2 angles. Well, let's talk about the circumstances of tonight. Actually, you know what? Hold on to that thought for a second. Let's show the D, because, Luddy, you sent us an interesting tidbit about a defensive pairing today. I don't know if you remember as far back as this morning, but
it's tough. Yeah.
This group, and obviously they were fortunate that Lyubushkin wasn't injured further in New York and was able to play against the Flyers. But, you know, it seems like Dumba had one of his better games against Philadelphia. What are your thoughts about some of the things you saw with the Lindell-Harley duo?
I just happened to land on something. I was looking around, and you know, there's all these different kind of analytics and all that kind of stuff, and I don't even understand all of them. But when I saw Essa and Thomas Harley jump to the top of one category, expected goals for, and they were number 1 over other D pairs, other lines together. And they were at something like 81%. I don't even know how they get to that number. But regardless, I'm like, well, wouldn't that be something if it was kind of that door we've been knocking on about maybe throwing Thomas? And I don't think this has got to do with Essa so much. For me, it was about Thomas Harley going, okay, well, if that's where it is. Because then when I looked at the pairing, I think it was Miro and maybe Essa. I'm not sure exactly who it was, but they were 141st or something like that on the expected goals for. And again, I know that the coaches are in analytics and things like that too. And I'm like, well, when all of a sudden one of your defensemen pops up on a goals for category and it's number 1, and you know, and I just thought, well, maybe I could kind of stir the pot a little bit more and just say, like, you know, we keep on saying Thomas Harley is the guy that has the most offensive instinct down there. Again, this is nothing against Miro Heiskanen, not zero. But I just think that maybe that first unit, because it seems like the second unit right now for Dallas is getting pucks to the net, and they're getting rewarded for it. And so anyway, it might be something that they may want to look at some point, but maybe not.
Sam, let's talk about the Mate Blumel news real quick. It was a bit of a surprise when they announced this morning that he was getting called up from the Texas Stars. Not because he doesn't deserve it. He's been really going lately with offense, but doesn't sound like he's going to play tonight.
Yeah, it seems like he's just an extra. So I'm not sure if that's just for some insurance for tomorrow. I know we have a back-to-back, and then another game, I believe, is on Tuesday in Toronto. So not sure whether their plan is to put him in tomorrow, or if it's just let's see how it goes. Maybe they pull out an older guy tomorrow and put in a younger guy with some more energy. As you said, he's been great in the AHL. I tweeted out about it morning skate in Philly. He leads Texas and 4th in the AHL with 18 goals. I think he's 6th in the AHL with 32 points. He's got 5 power play goals. He's been doing it in all areas of the ice, and he's really grown in terms of goal scoring. And while maybe the Stars weren't looking for that type of player earlier on when they called up Huru, Ritzkovian, and those guys, they probably may be now, right? They could use some help. We're just starting to get some scoring. They could probably use another guy. They could tuck a goal or two, especially while Stankoven kind of figures it out. But for Blumel, we talked a lot about him in the preseason. He was one of those guys that was in the running for that final spot that Oscar Beck ended up getting. And he was very frustrated that he didn't get enough of a chance the season before. I think he played 6 NHL games, scored a goal in his previous year that he got called up. And this year gets 1 game earlier against Edmonton, doesn't play a whole lot, doesn't get a point, and he gets right back down there. And since then, he's just done all the right things. So very deserving of being the guy up there. And it'll just be really interesting to see if he gets in there. I really think they should put him in tomorrow, just no matter the result tonight.
Let's talk about the goaltending. Show the graphic one more time for the Stars. Jake Oettinger gets the start. I saw somebody on social media, again, take it with a grain of salt, upset saying, when is he going to play a little bit better and act like a number one? And I looked at his numbers just before I lost it and reacted silly. He's won 4 straight starts. He's on a 5-game point streak. He's second in the NHL in wins and 9th in goals against. He has 20 wins, 2.41 goals against. His save percentage is not great. It's .908. I think some of that is maybe because of the team around him too, because if you remember the Ranger game, he gave up 3 goals in 5 minutes. That wasn't all on Jake, was it?
Well, and there were a couple of other games early on that wasn't his fault either.
But he bore the brunt of the bad stats.
Yeah, exactly. So, I think it's like everything else. It's like players that get off to a bad start in the first 20 games and you're -7 or -8, and really none of it has anything to do with you. You may be a guy that's out there and you're pulling the goaltender and you end up getting a minus after, and you can't climb out of the hole. And I think for goaltenders' numbers to go up to where you expect them to be or want them to be, once you're down there a little bit, it takes a lot to get them back up there. So I think the big number you keep looking at is the wins. And as long as he keeps on winning hockey games, that's where it is. He's got 40-some games left in the season after this, and whether he gets 20, 25 starts, the most important part is going to be when you get down to, 15, 10 games during the season, and he's playing his best for the season.
What I don't understand is for a guy that's been winning that many games and playing a ton, we were talking with Sean the other night in our last postgame show that Sean said he thought he's been overplayed a bit so far and that they should lean on DeSmith a little bit more. We're going to see this trade-off with these back-to-backs this weekend and next weekend, is that he's won so many. Why are you upset? Is it because they want him to have a shutout every night?
Somebody go back and look at Grant Fuhr's numbers. He wasn't sub-2 in his goals against over his career. He didn't have a .940 save percentage. He's got 4 Stanley Cups, and he played good enough. He just won hockey games. You know what I mean? Like they had obviously the Gretzky's, Messiers, those guys like that,
which helps.
But when they played, there was a lot of stuff going on. It's you can kind of look at a lot of these teams and they're similar. Like there's a lot of things that go on when you play on offensive teams that are offensively minded and have a good group of 6 or 8 or 9, whatever it may be up front that like to get up and run. You're going to give up chances. And so it's the big saves that these goaltenders made. And it was the same thing for Fuhr. Fuhr was under siege at times, and they won a lot of games 6-3, 6-4. Next thing you know, his goals against is up around 3, but he's still a Hall of Famer and he still has a Stanley Cup. So if you win a Stanley Cup here, I don't think you're going to be crying. You're not going to look back in game 39 or 40, whatever it is, and complain about his numbers.
And the team is second in the NHL with 2.5 goals against average every night. So I don't know what else you could want.
Yeah, get away from the numbers, right? Sometimes, Sam, get away from the numbers. Just look in the W and the L column and look at where they are. Look at how they're crawling. I don't know if they're crawling and they're jumping, whatever they're doing, but they continue to crawl up the standings. They're finding ways to. What they are now is they're consistent. They're getting to the point that when we were complaining for the first 10 to 15 games of the year and complaining about this line and that line and this guy and all this stuff, they are rounding into shape right now. And it took some guys a little more time to get going, and here they are. Now, and again, like you guys were talking about the Bork line, what it does is it creates hard matchups. Like Montreal is going to start being, the other teams will too, like, okay, now this Bork line is going too, and then we've got the Hintz line going. Duchesne and those guys are going. So it's going to create the same problems that they had last year when they were rolling 4 lines and 3 lines plus a bit. It's hard for a matchup, even if you're at home. What are they going to do? Who are they going to continue to put out against what line?
Well, if the Stars are maybe the hottest team with 6 straight wins, right with them is the Montreal Canadiens. They have wins in 3 in a row, but they have a very impressive, and as we'll show you their lineup in a second, they are 9-2-0 in their last 11 games. They went from 4 or 5 games under 500 to now on the verge of taking that playoff spot in the Eastern Conference, and they're in it. There's a whole bunch of teams within 3 or 4 points of the second wild card spot in the East, but Montreal has been downright unbeatable, and they've done it in a bunch of different ways. The last 3 wins, shootout and 2 overtime wins. They went Now, look, there is a circumstance, Luds, here where tonight it favors the Stars. They played on Thursday. They traveled and practiced in Montreal yesterday. The Canadiens went to Washington, D.C., beat the Capitals last night, had to travel back. So Dallas should be the more rested team, and they didn't have they Montreal probably got back late at night, and they didn't skate today. They had an optional. They only had 2 guys skate, but both of them are going to play tonight. Let's take a look at the lineup. It's Patrick Laine's back, although I think this was our guest this morning. I think Laine's going to be on the left and Newhook is going to be on the right with Kirby Dach. But what stands out to you most about this group is David Savard will come on the defense. We'll talk about that in a minute, Luds.
Well, there's a couple things. Like, who are you going to match up against? Let's say it's Hintz. Is it going to be Dvorak or is it Dach? I mean, now and then you've got the Caulfield, Suzuki, Slavkovsky.
Yep.
I couldn't say that even if I knew how to say it. but I mean, that line right now is going for him, and especially Caulfield. I mean, he's shooting the puck and he's flying around. Suzuki does the same thing. So, I think what they have now, and again, where they are, even though that they played a game last night, they're coming back to the Forum. They're going to have a bunch of fans that are even louder tonight because of what they've accomplished. They're back at home. So, and they fly around. This is another team that Dallas, I think, can take advantage because they will play like man-on-man on their end too. And so we'll see how Dallas can take advantage of that tonight.
With Montreal, the one thing I noticed is, Lutz, you were just talking about numbers. If you look at their numbers, they don't do anything really well. Everything they do, all their stats are somewhere in between the 12 to 20 range in the NHL league stats. It's just that they do everything. They don't do anything poorly, right? They're not horrible at anything. So their penalty kill, their power play, their goals against, their goaltending, it all just keeps them afloat. So they can find, as Owen just said, different ways to win every night. And that's an exciting team to watch, especially when your expectations aren't extremely high, right? If they're over expectations right now, if they're pushing for a playoff spot, that's better than people expect them to be. And it's because they're keeping themselves at the middle line and giving them a chance to win every night.
You know what else they have, Sam, is Montembeault will be in net tonight. And I think this kid here in the last 2 years or so since he's come on the scene has impressed a lot of people. He's big. He's 6'5", and he seems just like the other guy. What's it, Dobbs?
Yeah, the new kid.
Whatever.
Yep. Who hasn't lost yet in his starts.
It's incredible. And even with Montembeault, how good he is, his save percentage, I believe, is .898. He's played 176 games in the NHL. His save percentage is .898. So you kind of know who he is. And it doesn't sound like a great save percentage, but look at the team that he's played on with the last couple of years. But what he does, especially, he's big and he makes saves. He makes timely saves. And what I've seen of him, he allows that team to hang around. Whether they're down a goal or two, they don't stop. They keep on coming at you. And now they're getting some success. So I think they're starting to believe. So, even though they played last night, but I just think, coming home, it would be, I think what you have to do in the Forum tonight for the Stars, survive the first 5-10 minutes.
I love that you still call it the Forum. It's just
you have to.
Listen, he played in the Forum and won a cup there. He's allowed to call the Bell Center the Forum.
It's still
whatever
you
want
to me. It's the Forum to me. I'd call some of the establishments there too the same names that they've been renamed too, but they're still it's still Shea Paris. I don't care what they named it, but if they've changed the name. But I just think that they're going to have this bounce when they come back tonight. And I think if Dallas, whether they can calm it down in the beginning, but just kind of stay steady through the game, you would think that they'll start to wear out a little bit. So it should be I think it's going to be a high paced. I think it's going to be an exciting back and forth game.
So Luddy, let me ask you this, because it's Jakob Dobis. The young kid's 3-0. He is in 3 starts. He's got insane numbers. You mentioned the .898 save percentage for Montembeault. Here's the thing. Every time he's played the Dallas Stars, he's stood on his head, and he's done it
including his first game.
We've talked about this year. Montembeault has a .924 save percentage against Dallas in 4 games. He's only 2-2, maybe more to the point of his team, but he has always been a headache for Dallas.
He's one of them guys that seems to play deep in his net, like Jake does. I mean, he's big. He's 6'5". He stays in his net. He covers so much ice. All he does is kicks one leg to the left, one to the right, and makes these saves. So he's a workhorse, and he doesn't. Is he on the Four Nations? Is he one of their goaltenders?
I think he.
Did I hear?
I think he is the third, isn't he?
Is he the third? Yeah,
I'll have to look it up.
Look at these two guys. If you folks are watching, right, look at Sam. He's not looking, but he's looking, and he's just typing away. You guys got it? Is he on Four Nations?
Yes, he is on the Four Nations roster.
Okay, yeah.
Him, Jordan Bennington, and Aiden Hill.
So he's done enough to impress Hockey Canada too. So he's on the map. But again, they get the goaltending. And when a guy comes in and knows that the guys in front of you played last night, you're expecting to have a little more traffic in front of you.
Sam mentioned that they all have their stats about mid-table. There's one that's first, and it's from lanehutson. He's leading rookie scoring right now, and he's tied for 7th in the league in defenseman scoring.
Where did he come from?
He was in the same draft as Liam Bichel.
But I'm just saying, his name wasn't even mentioned until a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, boom, he's up there. And
what stands out to you about this young defenseman?
Confidence. I look at young players that are playing that way, and especially in a market like they're in, where you're the focus of every single game. And they've been looking for a defenseman like this. I don't know who they're going to say the last one was, but I remember Chelly when Chelios was there, and especially as an American coming in, and I was fortunate enough to have Chelly as a partner for 4 or 5 years, and they just wrap their arms around him because of the way he plays. But anytime you can play like that, because they're living on Larry Robinson, the big three, and then you have Chelly, and so I can go down the list of some great defensemen that they've had there, but this may be the next one, especially in this game that we're talking about now. Larry was a little different cat because, big, and he could beat up anybody, and, the big bird, and Chelly had a bit of a temper, and he was dirty, and all those kind of things, so you love him for that. But the game has changed a little bit, so these are the kind of players that they like, and when they've got a rookie that's where he is and is getting all the accolades that he is, that, like I said, they wrap their arms around these kind of players.
Sam,
and I like him because he's a college hockey player. Hockey East BU Terrier always gets my respect. I think he was Rookie of the Year in the Hockey East, first team all of Hockey East twice. So a lot of respect for me just because of that.
All right, show the defense, if you would, John, for the Montreal Canadiens. There's Hudson playing with Mike Matheson. Caden Gooley played with the acquisition that they got from Nashville, the trade. Barron goes the other way. Alexander Carrier now playing with Montreal. You can see Hudson there wearing number 48 on the picture. And then my favorite nickname in hockey right now, Wi-Fi, Arbor Jackeye. And David Savard, who is out, is back as well. So along with Laine, Savard is back in the lineup tonight. And then Montemo gets the start as we expected because Dobas played in Washington last night.
Jackeye 6'4", 250 pounds.
He's a tough kid too, isn't he?
And he likes to be tough. I don't think he's going to be part of that tonight because Dallas doesn't really have anything there. Maybe if Liam was here, that'd be a different story. But he can be effective in his role, and he is a loose cannon at times too. He can take a poor penalty.
Yeah.
Sam, this is the Ludwig Bowl, right? So in his career, I didn't look up the wins and losses head to head, but I did look up his stats. So Sam, if you were to guess which team, Montreal or the North Stars, because Luddy never played against Dallas, right? When he was with Minnesota, they moved to Dallas and he finished his career. So he never faced the Dallas Stars, but he played against the North Stars with both the Islanders and, of course, mostly with the Montreal Canadiens. Who do you think he had better numbers against, Montreal or Minnesota? And
did I have numbers?
Yeah.
Generally, I don't have numbers.
There were points.
Were there points?
There were.
Say,
it wasn't Lane Hudson numbers.
I want to say he had more points against Montreal with Minnesota.
Really?
He's incorrect.
I would have played Minnesota a lot more.
So you played.
I only played against Montreal when I was in Minnesota.
Times.
In Minnesota, that many times?
Minnesota and New York.
Oh.
You had
I forgot
17 games against Montreal. Remember, that was also with Dallas.
Oh, okay. All right.
You had 2 assists, minus 13, 10 penalty minutes. Against the Minnesota North Stars, playing with Montreal, and I would imagine a couple games with the Islanders. 24 games, so a few more. 2 goals, 4 assists, 6 points, only -1, and 24 penalty minutes. So those are some pretty good. I mean, the overall numbers, Stars in franchise history against Montreal, it's not good because I would imagine those early years in Minnesota, probably before you were there, Montreal used to feast on the North Stars when they were an expansion team.
Yeah, and even New York wasn't very good at the time either. So, I don't know why we got to bring my numbers up. I mean, this is just
it's just because it's your 2 biggest teams.
So I was in such a good mood because I got locked out of the studio and had to spend 20 minutes downstairs at Dick's, and now you bring this up. I mean, I feel like going back downstairs.
You could do that anyway.
I probably could.
You did not have to do that. You chose to.
Well, it's cold out. What else was I going to do?
It is cold for Dallas.
I sent a message again, John. I sent a message, and you know how long it took you to reply again? 9 minutes. 9 minutes.
John mutes us.
Now for the last topic.
What's the last topic?
It's Wyatt Johnston versus Cole Caulfield.
Okay, well, I was just tinkering today, and again, Cole Caulfield is a great player. Played at the University of Wisconsin, but he is their guy. He's their goal scorer now, and I was just comparing him because
5-game goal streak right now.
Yeah, he's hot. But I was looking at the number. He signed an 8-year deal that takes him to 30. He signed it at 22 years old, which that's ironically that's what Wyatt would be when he gets his deal done, and it was an 8-year deal, right? Takes him to 30 years old. So if Wyatt did the same, but his deal was $62,800,000. So that's 7.8, 7.9 almost. But when you compare, and so this is just comparing. Now Cole's played, 246 games, but versus 204. So when you kind of project it out over an 82-year season, this is where they're at. Caulfield's at would be 35 goals. Wyatt would be at 29, 28 assists, 28.
This is their current pace this year.
This is their current pace this year. 63 points to 55 points. Even strength goals, 25 to 22. Power play goals, 9 to 3. Shots on goal, blah, 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 270 to 1 to 200. Shooting percentage, 12.8 for Cole, 13.6, right? And then average time on ice is 18 minutes for Caulfield, 17. He's always a number. So I'm thinking that this would be a good comparable for him and his agent, right, when they go to...
Do you think it's equivalent?
Now, what I will say is, in my opinion, Wyatt Johnston is more of an all-around player and more valuable to this team. That's not fair because they're looking at Caulfield to score goals. I look at Caulfield as a goal scorer, right? That's it. Wyatt kills penalties. Wyatt's out there at the end of games. He's out there at the beginning of games.
So you're saying situational play a little different?
I give the edge for sure to Wyatt. So in my opinion, he's a more valuable player overall than Caulfield. Caulfield, to me, again, I don't want to take anything away from him. He's more one-dimensional for me.
He's more of an offensive threat.
That's what he is. He's an offensive threat, and he can score from anywhere. And the reason I like Wyatt is he's more of an interior player. He will go through the middle of the ice. Caulfield, you're going to see tonight if you're watching the game. There'll be a lot of perimeter shots, and he can shoot from the goal line and score, things like that. And size-wise, they're Wyatt's a little bit bigger. It says he's listed at 6'2". I don't know about that, but.
With Caulfield's current form, are you surprised that he didn't make the U.S. Four Nations roster?
100%. 100%. I mean,
same like Jason Robertson. Robertson has heated up. He has 11 points his last 6 games. But he's starting to play that style. But
they can still make the teams. I mean, it's not completely set yet.
Clayton Keller, Caulfield, Robertson, all of them are candidates for that.
Yeah, I just think Robo is obviously because he got off to a slow start.
Yep.
I mean, Caulfield, what did I just say? He's got 25 goals or something? What's he got? 23 goals?
He's the team leader in scoring with 23.
Yeah, he's got 23 goals. So, I mean, right now, how would you not? How do you keep him off? Regardless. But so I was just looking at that. So maybe that's what they use. And the other big thing, probably for Wyatt, probably the biggest thing is the salary cap is going to be going up. So everybody says that's a good comparable. I think Wyatt's deal should start with an 8. Now I'm a little biased because I think he's going to be a really, really good player. And he's a good player now. If his trajectory keeps on going, can you imagine what he's going to be like in 2 to 3 years?
Hockey night in Canada. It should be fun. It's a Saturday night in Montreal. It is the glitziest, most high glamour hockey night and location you could pick in Montreal.
Saturday night in Montreal. Man, you want to be staying over if you got a choice.
There's nothing better. So for Luds, for Sam, for John, I'm Owen. We hope you join us for the post-game show right after the game right here on DLS. Enjoy tonight's game.
I believe that they are going to crush these guys tonight.
We all silly like the mayor.